My name's Bree, and I'm going to be your trainer today. I've trained you guys for the past couple weeks, probably actually over a month now at this point. So if I am new to you guys, nice to meet you. If you recognize me, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about navigating Excel, introduction of formulas, things like that. We're not going to be doing anything super complex, even if it was a 200. There's like Excel is so robust that even a 200 level is still fairly basic. So anybody who was worried that they might not be able to keep up, we're not going to be doing anything extremely, taxing. And then for those of you who are looking for extremely advanced topics, like 3D maps or anything like that, we won't be doing that. So just a little bit of a disclaimer around that. Okay. So some of you guys may not have used Excel in a while. Feel free to let me know in the chat if you're like a beginner, or if you, not a beginner, but you don't use it often, or you haven't used it in a while, especially since maybe like Office 2013, 2016, or 2019. Those were all formerly desktop versions, meaning they're not cloud, they don't connect to online services or anything like that. And they typically don't have all of the features that the online versions have. We only do online versions, not online, but we only do cloud versions now. So there's still, Excel for desktop, but it does have internet connectivity and cloud connectivity. But we added a lot of new features over the past few years. We've really upgraded a lot of the charts and graphs, as well as some of the other functionality that you are able to do in Excel. One of those is the ability to co-author on documents. Now, if you've been using Office Online for a while, or Office 365, I should call it, for a while, then you should be used to the co-authoring features. It's across all Office products. But as you can see in this screenshot, there's a couple of people in this document. It tells you what line they're working on and where they are in the document. And you can see them actually typing and making changes in real time. Okay. These are some key terms to know. Now, I'm not going to go over all of these, but obviously a cell, that's where your data is actually listed, is inside of cells. Functions. For those of you who don't know or don't understand the difference between function and a formula, a function is basically a pre-written formula, and all you do is plug in the values. And then a formula is basically a function that you make from scratch, if you think of it like that. So if you do, for example, equals cell A5 plus B5, that's a formula. But if you do sum, you're calling the sum function, and you're just selecting the cells that you want to include in that, and it does the calculation. And sum tells Excel that you want to perform addition. So they do the same thing, but one you've kind of written out blatantly or more straightforwardly, and then a function has a formula stored inside of it to reduce the amount of formula that you have to write. So these are, a lot of different definitions. I'll maybe try to come back and post these in the chat. But these are some key terms to kind of be aware of. So let me hop into my Excel sheet. Yes, this is recorded. And then if you can't hear, you need to leave and come back. Sometimes if your bandwidth is struggling, Teams live events may cut your sound. So if you lose sound throughout this, try leaving and coming back. Okay, 2 questions right away. So you'll see my screen go dark for just a second. Don't worry, I'm just switching my screen share. All right, let me make sure this is actually sharing, and I need to share my whole desktop actually. So give me 1 second. Also, I apologize if I sound a little bit breathless throughout the training. I am expecting and also have a stomach ache today. So if I do sound a little bit breathless, I pretty much am at this point. Almost near the finish line. So I apologize in advance. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of different topics here on this first slide. And since we are kind of, not slide, but this first sheet, and since we are kind of merging the 100 level and the 200 level, normally I wouldn't do the navigational overview, but I do want to do that. If I can just get rid of this black box, which is always in my way. Okay, so we'll start with the files. File section. You guys should be familiar with this. It's very similar to other Office programs, but this is basically, you know, just like a suite of quick things that you can do. One thing I love are the templates. Excel can do some really cool stuff, but you know, if you don't use it every day and you're not super savvy, you know, you may not necessarily want to build something completely from scratch, or you may not even know how to. But I love the templates. Like, look how nice that looks. I think I'm going to make something with this later because I've been wanting to make a new budget sheet. But it's nice because it gets you off the ground. You don't have to think too much. If you want to build a calendar, you can actually search for what you want to build. Oops. If I can spell things correctly. So I can search calendar and I get tons of different templates, different styles. You know, social media planning calendar. If I want to look for invoices, I can get those too. So I really love the templates because they save you a lot of time, and all you need to do is really plug in what you want. You can add rows as you need to. You can add any information that you need to, but it really saves time. And that's something that there weren't as many options in the previous M365 versions as there are now. And you are able to download more templates from online. Okay, they also have these little tutorials. So if you're not sure how to do pivot tables, or you want to really get really robust with pie charts, get really familiar with formulas, I recommend coming and taking some of these and checking them out. They can give you a good foundation. Okay. Of course, you have all of your saving functionalities, print, share, exporting. Now, if you need to get to your account, like, for example, you may have a work license and you may have a personal license on your computer, and you may need to switch back and forth between the two. You want to come back here to account and switch. As you can see, I have a couple of different ones, but you can switch in and out of accounts. It lets you know what kind of license you have. I'm, of course, Microsoft employee, so I have the top enterprise license. But this gives you information, you know, what you have going on back here. Options. So quite a few different things back here. You know, you have options for setting up sort of your interface. If you want your workbooks to default to a certain style, so maybe you always wanted to use this font. You know, if you want things set up a certain way and you want that to happen every time, if you want to come back here and change different options with your formula. So there's lots of things to do back here. Any add-ins that you need to add will be added back here. Uh-oh, did my computer freeze? Okay, will be added back here. So you'll just click go, and then you'll browse and you'll add a new add-in. Okay, so just for the sake of time, I'm not gonna go over everything back here, but you can see these are documents that other people are working on that are shared with you. So these are documents that I have been shared or have been shared with me, and it tells you who's working in them, when's the last time someone worked on it. As you can see, Brianna Moles, which is actually not me, was in this document 13 minutes ago. So that's the power of it being connected online. Okay, now moving on to the stuff that's actually inside of the workbook. And let me kind of explain too the components of an Excel document. So an Excel document is also referred to as an Excel workbook. A workbook is made up of sheets. So this is a sheet, this is a sheet, this is a sheet, so on and so forth. So it's made up of sheets. All those sheets collectively make a workbook. You have columns, so A, B, C, D, etc. are columns, and then you have rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and infinity. Those are rows. The information that you put into Excel will live in these cells, okay? And you can reference a cell for a particular, inside of a formula, or, it's basically the cells become variables that you can plug in to your formulas. And when you select a group of cells, they are called a range. However, sometimes in a formula, you might see it ask for a table array. An array is the same thing as a range. It's coding language, and Excel's formula language is essentially a little bit of coding, but just less complex. So when you select a group of cells, that's called a range. Okay. Here in our home tab, we have all of our formatting tools for the most part. We've seen these typical ones. They're in every Office program this first half. Here are your number formatting. If you need something to be a percentage, currency, a date, time, you can change the formats of those numbers. These are your styling formatting, which we will talk about tables, and actually we'll talk about all these today, especially conditional formatting, which is nice to automatically format specific types of data in your Excel sheet. So like, for example, if you want to identify anything with the word, happy, you can have it automatically do that even as you add new data to your table. Or if you want to identify the lowest test score, every time new scores are added, you want it to highlight them. You can do that too. Cell formatting. So these are like specific to how you want the cells to be formatted. And then some other editing tools. Here in the Insert tab, you can add pivot tables, which we will try to get to today. I'm going to try to go through this stuff a little bit quicker since we are we've got a lot of people in here too. So I want to leave some time for Q&A and all that stuff. But we've got pivot tables. You can insert, pictures, all that good stuff. And here are a few add-ins you can get. Some things I already have built in. This is also where you're going to find any of your pie charts and graphs. We do have 3D maps now, which is newer, which is really cool. We won't be going over that today, but if you have any geographical data, you can actually put that on like a 3D map and, build little animations around it. But these are all different types of visualizations, essentially. Slicers are kind of like filters, so on and so forth. So these are all of your sort of graphics and anything you need to insert, like a link, a video, a comment, any of that stuff, headers, footers, good stuff. Drawing. You may not see this if you don't have a touchscreen device. You will not see this tab. I happen to have one, so this tab is available to me, but if you're looking on your computer and you don't see it, it's likely because your device is not touchscreen or it doesn't have pen support, meaning there's no pen that is supported by the screen. I have heard of some people not seeing this while having those two things, but I don't have an answer as to why that happens in particular, but we won't talk about this too much today. Page layouts has everything to do with, your orientation, page size, grid size, all that good stuff. Formulas. So this is a tab that you'll probably use a lot, especially as you're getting started. If you need a financial formula, it's this is not something you're gonna just memorize. You're not gonna just start using Excel and know all these formulas, nor can I teach them all to you. So I would recommend watch videos. Like, that's really the best way to learn Excel. If you want to accomplish something, Google it, because that's what I always do. How do I get Excel to do this? And then you usually, can look around and find solutions, but There's quite a few formulas in here. Logical formulas, logical formulas basically pose a question, or they are a true or false answer, which we will do a logical formula today called an if function. And that'll basically be, that's basically a true or false question. If something is true, then what? If it's not, then what? So we'll kind of talk about that today. So tons of formulas back here. Formula auditing, again, we'll talk about. In your data tab, if you need to bring in data, this is a little bit more advanced. We won't be doing really anything in here today because queries and connections and bringing in data, that's pretty advanced for anything that we need to talk about today. But this really is like a place to analyze your data, validate it, check it, make sure it's right. Also, just do lots of different things with data. Create automated flows. Again, more advanced for what we need to do today. Reviewing. So in this tab, you can actually leave comments. So if you are working with someone in this document, I can leave a comment. I'll select, whatever cell, and I'll say this is the wrong calculation. And I can, oops. And then I can leave that comment there, and then whoever I share this, document with, they'll see the little purple tab and they'll know that there's a comment in that cell. And it can be a cell with data in it. The little purple tab is just going to show up in the corner here. But there's also something a lot of people don't know you can do. You can password protect. You also can encrypt the entire file, which is back here in the options. You can encrypt the file so that a password is required to even open the entire file, or you can password protect the sheet. So as we have several sheets in here, this one will be password protected and will require a password to get into it. Or you can even password protect just specific cells. So if this is maybe last year's data and I don't want anyone messing it up or changing it, because that's a big deal. We don't want last year's data to be changed because that wouldn't be true. You can lock specific cells so that everything else on the sheet is editable except what is in that range of cells. Okay, and then you can protect your workbook, meaning the document can be open and read only, but the whole thing is locked and cannot be edited. And in order to edit any cells, you will need to unlock it. Okay. And then finally, your view tab. This changes the way you want to view things. Freeze pane, I'll see if I can fit in time for that, but freeze pane is cool if, let's say you have many rows of data and you have headers. The freeze pane will freeze those headers so that as you scroll, they're still visible. And there's a couple of different things. Freeze pane will freeze the rows and the columns. Freeze the top row will just freeze the columns, and then freeze the top row will just freeze the first line under your columns if you even have them. So it's going to freeze basically just this row or this row. And then freeze columns will, actually, they're kind of calling these opposites because these are rows and these are columns, but vice versa. So that's what that does. Lots of stuff back here. And then, of course, help. Okay, so we're actually going to move on just for the sake of time. We got a lot to get through. Lots of question already. What level works with maps? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You might need to clarify for me. I can't email you this video. It's too big and we can't email external people large files, but this recording is on demand. So all you need to do is come back to this link and it will instantly replay the event. So the same link that you use to join this meeting, just go ahead and come back to it. You can come back to it as soon as it's over, or, the next day, or actually you have up to 180 days and it will play the instant playback for you. Can you make it so someone can co-author documents? Yeah, all you need to do is just share the link with them. And when you share the link, just make sure that you include editing access. Is there a way to share Excel document with only a few people? Yes. I'll try to get to the sharing stuff today. But I want to move on a little bit just because, and thank you guys for the congratulations, just because there's a lot to get through. And we'll try to go over sharing. So Merge and Center. So I like Merge and Center just because it's a nice way to give your information like a title, a header, you know, make it clear what this area is that you're looking at. So we're going to turn this into a table and everything, and we're going to jazz it up. But first, let's start with taking this. So you'll see here this is actually in one cell. And if I click on this cell, I can't edit it. That actually edits an entirely different cell. So what you want to do is actually merge and center all of this so that it becomes one long cell. So I'm going to select this and however far across I want this to go. So I want this to cover our whole table. In our home tab, and I'm sorry, I can't zoom in on this toolbar up here. I can zoom in on the cells, but I can't make this any larger. In our home tab, in our alignment tools, you will see this merge and center option. Okay, merge across does the same thing, but it just doesn't center it. So it will merge all these cells, but this will still stay to the left. But we want merge and center. Okay, and we want to make this a little bigger. Okay, let's make it bold too. So now we have a nice header title, and I apologize. I know you guys are college level, but this is a sheet that I've had prepared for a while. So the examples are kind of like elementary based or, you know, non-college based, K through 12. So we've got our title. Now, if we look at our data here, we will see we have some duplicates. We have Timothy. We have Grayson both here and here. And someone's cutting the grass, so I apologize. We have Anna Marie here and here, but we want to remove that because, oh, yikes, that's actually skewing our average score. It's not right if we have several students in there multiple times. And you might want to do this just because, you know, sometimes you download some data from somewhere and it has duplicates for, you know, any number of reasons, but you want to make sure they're cleared out. So we want to go ahead and select our range of data. And we want to come to the data tab. And here in the data tools, we want to remove duplicates. Now we haven't turned this into a table yet. So you'll want to make sure you check my data has headers. It's already checked. So it's recognizing first name, last name, average top scores as headers, column headers, which is what we want. But we don't really care about checking for duplicates in the average and top because once these are removed, those will go with it. So we're going to uncheck those. So as you can see, it removed those 3 duplicate values and left 15 unique ones. And our scores changed to the appropriate score. Also, actually, we'll look that over in a second, but you'll see our scores change to the appropriate score. So now we don't have to worry about those duplicates messing up our data. Okay. Now I want to go ahead and I'm going to do show formulas because there's actually something inaccurate about this data. Or even if you didn't see it, I happen to know because I caught it yesterday, but if you didn't know and you just wanted to double check, you can actually use show formulas to make sure that the formulas are calculating correctly. Maybe you got this sheet from someone else and the scores maybe don't match what you have or something like that. So we're going to go to the formulas tab and I'm going to select, actually, you don't have to select anything. And here in the formula auditing, you'll see this show formulas. That's going to actually reveal the formulas for each file, any formulas you have on this sheet for the whole document. Now you can see my max score is calculating F3 to F18. Well, we don't have any data in F3. So that tells me right there that that is not likely, that's not correct. There's no data here. So how is it factoring in anything there? And then F18, our data ends on line 24. So that means we have scores missing. If I click on this, it tells me, or it shows me exactly what range is being calculated, which is incorrect. So I want to go ahead and fix this. And I want to select the proper range. Okay. We'll turn our show formulas off. There we go. And then let's see, what doesn't it like here? Yep. That looks correct. But yeah, you want to use show formulas just to check your data, or even just to check to see what formulas were used. Maybe you don't understand how they got to that conclusion. Oh, you know what? That was correct. This one was wrong. That's the one that we need to fix. I was like, why is it not changing the score? It's our max score, so our top score was calculated wrong. There we go. So you want to make sure that, you know, if you get this document from someone else and you don't really know what's going on with it, you know, use your show formulas to just double check how they got those answers. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is turn this into a table. And if you ever need to import an Excel sheet into something, 99.9% of the time is going to need to be in a table. Otherwise, whatever you're importing it into will likely throw you some type of rejection or error saying it doesn't see any data or it doesn't recognize it. And that's because most things need things to be in a table so that it can actually identify the columns, which turn into filters once you put them in a table. And it allows whatever you're uploading it to be able to filter through your data. So we're gonna, again, select our lovely range. And up here in the styles, we're gonna select format as table and choose any one of these colors. So we'll go with the blue. Yes, we have headers. So we want it to assume that these first lines will be our headers. And now we have our data in a nice table. Okay. Now you'll see here, these are our only color options. If you don't really like those, you can create a new table style, or if you go to page layouts, you can choose a new theme. So for example, if I choose, you know, this badge theme or Berlin, there are quite a few to choose from. We'll go with, what was it? Was it this one? That's a bit bright. We'll go with this one. So as you can see, the fonts changed and everything. If I come back to the table formatting, I have all new color options based on that theme. And then let's say I like the color, but I don't like this font. I can change just the font. Oops. There we go. I think that's a little bit easier to read. And it actually changes your entire workbook. So your whole workbook will be on theme. Oops. Okay. So that's how you set up a table. As you can see now, we have filters to that table. So now I'm able to actually filter through the students. So if I, let's say I deselect all of them and I just choose Katniss, now I only see her data and her results. Okay, let's move on and let me check the Q&A. All right, I think I answered those already. Now we're going to look at some cell formatting, which is basically just, let's say you want to identify data in your cell or you want to identify something in your data, but you don't need to turn it into a table because it's not, maybe this is not data that you want to change, or you want to lock these cells afterwards, but you want to highlight or identify certain trends in the data. You can do that just by simply formatting the cells without having to apply conditional formatting, which means you don't need it to actually look for a specific attribute to apply the formatting, but rather you just want to apply it manually. So let's say we want to look at this and we want to say, oh, we want to highlight the lowest scores by quarter in red. So you would come up to cell styles, and we would pick this one, or you could pick this red, right? Or if you don't like any of these colors, or you have a custom color or specific color to identify something, you can create a new cell style. You can even fill them with patterns, which I don't necessarily recommend, but you can create new colors, custom colors, whatever, to identify trends in that particular data. So once you create that color, you'll then have to go back to cell styles and it will be a new option for you up here. So if I just decided to come in here and I wanted to identify all the lowest scores manually, I can do that without applying any conditional formatting, which means I don't have to have set up a certain rule in order for these to apply. And then let's say I wanted to take this range because this is last year's data, and I wanted to come over to my review tab and I wanted to protect specific cells in this document, I can do that. And then set up a password and nobody can touch that data. It's very simple. Moving on to the rubric. So this is where we're going to get into some formulas. Here we have like a basic rubric, right? It's got some students' names, and they've got, they're getting scored on 3 different categories, which is reading composition, grammar, and sentence structure. And they're all worth 10 points. So that's a total of 30 points. What we want to find out from this data, or what we want to identify in this data, is we want to give them a passing or failing grade. So we want this to print the words pass or fail based on whether they achieve a certain number of points. That's going to be 18 points. So anything greater than 18 points, they'll pass. Anything less than that, they will fail. Then we want to calculate the percentage score based on their total score. Then we want to assign them a letter grade based on that percentage from this little legend. This legend was made just like we did with a conditional formatting. There are no formulas behind this table. All I did was put in the letter grades, color code them, and make them look nice. So there's nothing fancy about this, but we're going to use this, and this is going to be a VLOOKUP formula, which is a little bit more complex to understand. It will probably be the most advanced thing that we do in here, but it's a little bit more complex, so I try to really explain thoroughly that particular formula. But first, let's start with our if function. So remember, I said an if function is like a true or false question or a yes or no question. Okay, so it's asking if something is true, then what? If it's not true, then what else? That's quite literally just true or false. If it's true, then that means they got 18 points or greater, which means they pass. If it's not true, then that means they got less than 18 points and they failed. Okay, so in order to start a function or any calculation in Excel, you need to, the lawnmower is coming back, you need to hit the equal sign. That tells Excel that you're ready to perform a calculation, and that you are not just simply entering in data. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Mouse up. You're not simply just entering data. You are getting ready to perform a calculation. So we're going to put equals, and we're going to call our function. So this is where you need to learn what the functions do for what you're trying to accomplish. I simply want a yes or no answer. So I'm going to use an if function. These are some other ones, like for example, if error means if any of these conditions are not met, then if it's not true, or if it's basically not either of your options, then what do I do if there's an error? What do you want me to say? And it will check for validation. So for example, if your formula was like, if the words pass are in this box, then print this, but you never tell it what to do if it's not in that box, that will throw like an error, and you need to tell it what to do if there is no alternative. So we're gonna choose if. Now you get these little white boxes that kind of tell you what Excel is expecting you to plug in. And this is a good way to learn the functions. Just go in a cell, type them in or select them. You can also do that by going to the formulas tab and then looking for the same function from the list, because you're not going to know them all by heart. And then look and see what type of information it wants you to plug in. So the first information it's asking me to plug in is a logical test. So that's basically the question. What is the logical question, right? You have to come up with a logical answer to the question. So it needs the question to test your two answers against. So we're going to ask if the total score, okay, and we're going to choose this first column or this first cell because it's going to reference. So since we are calling total score, when you see that @ sign, we're calling anything that is in the column of total score. And what that's going to do is calculate all of these at the same time. So we won't have to do this formula over and over. It's going to calculate all the way down this row anything that references total score. So that's everything in this row. So if the total score is greater than 18, like I have to scream over this lawnmower. If the total score is greater than 18, that's our logical test right there. That's the question. Now we add a comma and it's ready for us to tell it what we want it to do if it's true. If the total score is greater than 18, then we want to put in quotations because we want Excel to take this word literally, meaning this is not a part of the formula. This is what we want you to print once the formula has checked for its answer. We want to print the word pass. So if the total score is greater than 18, then pass, comma, if it's not, fail. Okay. We hit enter. It goes ahead and applies that logic to everything that references total score. 15 is less than 18, so it fails. 28 is greater than 18, so it passes. 16 fail, 27 pass. 7 fail, 30 pass. So it works pretty simply, and that's an if function. Okay, use that when you need to apply true or false logic or like a yes or no logic. Now we want to find our percentage. This is a formula, simple formula. We're not calling a function in this instance. We're going to do some division and multiplication, but instead of calling sum and then calling the divide function, we're just going to type it manually. So we're going to hit an equal so that Excel knows we're ready to perform a calculation. We're going to call total score again because our percentage is going to be based off of the total score, which is 30 points. So we want to divide that by 30 points. So whatever the 15 points divided by 30, we actually want to put this in parentheses because we want this calculation to happen first. And then we want to divide that by 100, or sorry, multiply that by 100. And now we've got our percentages for each of those scores all the way down. Okay. Now, for the VLOOKUP, the little bit more complex one. The VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. meaning it's going to look vertically within the data. So and an HLOOKUP stands for horizontal. So it's going to look horizontally within the data for the answer. But we want it to look vertically within these columns. Not horizontally, but vertically. So first thing we're going to do is hit the equal sign and type in VLOOKUP. Now, I have a bad habit of hitting enter because, like, I feel like we just live in such an autocorrect society that we're used to having to auto finish longer words, even though that's not even that long. Excel doesn't like that. So if you hit enter and it freaks out, that's why. If you see this, and don't worry, just hit Control Z and do it again, except this time, if you don't want to finish typing it, you need to actually select the function. You can't hit enter, it doesn't like it. So now it wants a lookup value, which is going to be our percentage. What is it looking up? It's looking up our percentage. And then remember I told you that sometimes a range is called a table array. When you see this in the white box and you don't know what it means first put a comma. The commas let Excel know you're ready to plug in the next variable. The table array is the range that we want to search within. So we want to look up anything that's 50% in this array. So our lookup value is we want to look up this percentage and see if it's in this array anywhere or this range anywhere. Okay, you need to hit F4. Yikes, don't do that. Hang on. You need to hit F4. This acts a little bit wonky sometimes. Great. It does this to me every time. Make sure that you put your, make sure the $ is on both of the letters. I don't know why it hasn't been doing that for me lately. Usually when you hit F4, it will do it to both, but lately it's only been doing it to, well, first of all, my range is wrong. So let me fix my range because we want it to go to I6, not I5. There we go. What this does is essentially tell Excel to look within this range and not try to, we're not calculating anything in this range. We're just simply referencing it. So when you don't have the $, Excel, remember when we did on the first page, when we wanted to find out the max, meaning the top score of, you know, H10 to H11 or whatever, it's looking to do that calculation, but we don't want any calculations. We just want it to reference this range. So that's why we need those like $ thingies there. And you get that by hitting F4, but mine's been acting a little bit wonky. So we're going to add our column, and now it's asking for a column index number. So an index number or an index simply means what position is it in. I know this is why I say this one is complex, because I have a background in coding, so I understand these things that it's asking for. But when it asks for a column index number, it's asking which of the columns selected do you want me to print the answer from? In this case, it's the second column. So we have 2 columns in this range, H and I. We want you to print whatever is in the second column. So the index is 2, if that makes sense. Then another comma. Now it's asking for a true or false match. Approximate match is true because as long as 50% falls within 90 and 0, the answer is true. If we're looking for an exact match, it's going to spit out an error, or it's going to spit out NA, because there is no 50% exactly in this range. So we want an approximate match because none of these are exact scores, and we don't have every single number possible from 0 to 100% that can fit in this table. So we want something approximately because that's going to make it true no matter what. And then we go ahead and calculate that, and it gives us our letter grade all the way down the table. Okay. So what it did was take 50%. It looked for it in this column, or really in this whole range. It looked for it, and then it asked us, well, what do you want me to bring back? We want you to bring back whatever matches that from the second column. So that's an F, unfortunately, for Mrs. or Mr. or yeah, Mrs. Burgess. Fortunately for her, she did not pass this this assignment. Okay, let me go ahead and check Q&A. If the score was 18, it would be true. So I know it says true or false, or I know it says greater than 18. If it was 18, it would still be true. All right. What time is it? All right, let's go ahead and real quickly do conditional formatting, and then we'll end on pivot tables. This is really hard to look at. I don't like looking at red tables, so we're going to change that to let's do nice blue. It's a little bit easier to look at. All right, so we have that same table. We've got our same answers. However, now we want to apply some conditional formatting. Okay, so I want to identify anything in my table that says pass. I want that to show up green. So even if I add new rows, I add a new student or whatever, and they say it says pass, it will automatically apply that formatting without me having to go and do it. I won't have to come up here to cell styles and apply that style every single time new data is added. Okay. And I want to do for fail, I want it to be red. I feel like this is really small, so I'm sorry. So yes, the first thing I'm going to do is, yeah, we're going to create a new rule. Actually, I'm going to do that one last. So we're going to do data bars first. I'm going to do this last because the rules are a few extra steps. I want to do data bars. So I want to look at this percentage, and I want to give it I want to have it filled by visible bars that you can see. If it's 100%, the bar should be all the way full. If it's 50%, halfway full, and vice versa. So we're going to select this range. And we're going to come up here to conditional formatting, and we're going to choose data bars. And then we're just simply going to choose the bars of our liking. Right? So as you can see, this is 100% full. This is, 50% full. You could make this larger if you want to. And now you're able to just visually glance, glance and see. I want to glance and see who has the lowest score without necessarily scanning every single line with my eyes to try and see who has the lower score. So every time new scores are added, the proper bar level will be added to it. Top and bottom rules. Let's say I want to identify the top 5 scores and the bottom low scores. So I want to select this range, go back to my conditional formatting, top and bottom rules, and I actually want to identify the top 10 items, not the top 10%. I know we're dealing with percentages in this particular column, but what you actually want is the top 10 items. So we're going to go ahead and select that and then lower that to 5. We want this to be green because that's a good thing. Oops, green or yellow, but we'll do green. And if you don't like this color, you can come and add a custom color, but we're not doing that for the sake of time. So now I've identified the top 5 scores. As I add new data, if someone's score is higher than its 93.33, it will replace it. So that's the beauty of conditional formatting. You don't have to keep on keeping up with this stuff. And every time you add new data, it can stay on par with what you have set up. Now we want to do the bottom 10 items. Or sorry, 5 items. And now we've got our bottom 5 identified. So our underperforming students and our, overperforming students. Okay. Now let's talk about custom rules or making our own rules. So you'll go ahead and select this range, and there's no automatic formatting that says, doesn't account for a specific text. So we're going to select this whole range, and we're going to go to new rule, and we're going to make a rule that applies to this text. Okay. So you have a couple of different rule types. Formatting cells based on their values, formatting cells that contain something, a certain thing or value, formatting only the top or bottom ranked values, so on and so forth. We want to do format cells that contain, and instead of cell value, we want to do a specific text. So if it contains the word pass, we want that to be green. So we're going to format that. Go and grab this nice bright green fill. Actually, let's do the not so bright one. And now we want to apply that, and all of our passing grades are green, which we have, we have quite a few students passing our class. And now we want to create another rule for any cell containing the word fail. And we want that to be red. There you go. Conditional formatting. Pretty simple. And then if you want to go and change any of these, go to managing rules. Actually, you need to select the range that has the formatting in it. Then go to manage rules. And now you can come and change, edit these. Maybe you don't want the data bar to be yellow. You can come and change that. Simple. Okay. Go. I can do pivot tables in 1 minute. Pivot table, real tiny. We have some data here. Why is it so small? We have some data here. We have those teachers. We have all the teachers in the school, along with the curriculum or the subjects that they teach, how many years of seniority they have been at the school, and their squad color, meaning if you've ever been to like any elementary school, usually, well, I went to a very large one. The school is divided into like colors or quadrants, and then that quadrant is usually the group that goes on all the field trips together. Each quadrant has like an English and math and science, all that stuff. So we want to create a pivot table that takes this data, summarizes it or categorizes it so that it's easier to navigate through. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is actually turn this data into a table like we did before. Oops, format as table. Yes, we have headers. Okay. Then I want to go to my insert tab and I want to insert a pivot table. You can, if you don't know what kind of like pivot table you want to do, you can look at some recommended ones. But we're actually going to go ahead and select ours from scratch or make ours from scratch. So we want this table range. And we want it to be on the same sheet. So all you need to do is just select any cell that you want the pivot table to start in and hit OK. Oops, what's going on? Hang on. Existing worksheet. OK, there we go. So you'll see you get these fields. So any of your columns, they turn into the fields of your pivot table. And then anything that's a number, you want to put usually in this value section. So in this case, that would be seniority, total seniority of 347 years. But we haven't given it any other context for this number. So we want to go ahead and we want to take our teachers and we want to apply that to rows. So now we can actually look and see the seniority for each teacher. Now, if you make this column, now you got teachers going all the way across. We don't want that. So rows is how we want it. But what if we want to know what teachers teach what subject? So we're going to go ahead and take a subject and we're going to put that above teachers. So now we know for our algebra teachers, we have Miss Chrisley, Miss Gracie, Miss Percy, and for biology, we have whatever. I promise I did not mean to make all the male teachers the same subject and all biology teachers girls. I didn't mean to do that. It's just how the data is being sorted out after the way that this is made. It just so happens that the teams are very sexist, and I apologize for that. If I want to show what teachers teach what subject, but I want to see the teachers and then list their subject, I can rearrange that. I happen to like this better. And then what happens if I want to know what squad they are? Let's add squad into there. Now I can see all the blue teachers, what subjects are on blue and what teachers teach them, or vice versa, but I don't like the way that looks. So I'm going to add what's called a slicer. And a slicer is basically a filter that you can apply without having it show up in your pivot table. So we're going to add a slicer for squad color. And now if I want to see what teachers are on blue, I can, instead of adding a new section for blue on the actual pivot table, I can just filter that. So now I see what teachers are blue. I can select multiple teachers, blue and green teachers, so on and so forth. And maybe I just want a list of teachers. I can add another slicer, oops. And this time I'll have their subject. And then we'll take their subject out of the pivot table. So now I see teachers and I want to see algebra teachers only, or I want to see the algebra teachers on the blue team. So that's how pivot tables work. I know we went a little bit over, but I did want to at least show that because I think they're cool. All right, so that concludes everything that we have to go over today. I know we went a little bit over. Can you explain why you need to format as a table first? I've used pivot tables, but never taken the format. You don't have to, but you just need to make sure when you go to create your pivot tables, that you check that it has headers. The tables help your pivot table realize what are fields. So you don't have to turn it into a table. I just like to, because it guarantees that I have my filters on, and I can actually still control I can still control the pivot table through the filters on the table, and they are actually connected. So when you do that, if you're filtering your like, let's say you have this table in a whole other sheet, that way you can filter that and it's also changing your pivot table. They're connected. But when you don't do that, you can't filter anything. You just have headers, but they're not filtered. Actually, you can add filters. There's really no right way to do it, but just make sure whenever you do the pivot table that you have, yes, I have headers selected, and you select the proper cells for headers. But it doesn't matter. I just like the tables. It helps me see everything clearly. But no real reason. Yes, and then it's recorded, so I can't send you guys the recording, but Mandy can send it out, or she can post it wherever you guys normally access, like previous trainings. So it is recorded, so don't worry about that. In the meantime, we do have a survey. It is optional, but We would love it if you could take the brief survey. Questions 1 through 3, 9s and 10s means I did a great job. And then questions 4 through 6 are a great place to leave detailed feedback. Okay, I'll go ahead and post this link to the survey in the Q&A as well, so that you guys can copy and paste it, or if you want to take the QR code version, scan it with your phone.